First of all, you got to figure out who you are. I could teach the skill set. I can't teach you common ethics, morality, and just being a good person. We're always trying to build our people up. We have that really humble servant, but like that servant leadership. I want to see progress. I don't need perfection. It's quality over quantity always, right?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. I'm Kelsey Alex from here at Lift Auto Repair Marketing, and we have another amazing guest with us today. We have Kevin Roth from Kevin's Auto Repair Service there in Swoyersville, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us today.
No, man, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I hope I didn't butcher that name. I think I said it right. So I think we're good. For those that don't know where Swoyersville is, it's close to Scranton. And so if you don't know where Scranton, just type in the word Scranton, you'll figure out from there what we're talking about. But
easily.
But again, I'm super excited to have you on here, Kevin, and we're going to be talking a lot about leadership and culture. But before we dive into kind of those topics, I would love to hear your story a little bit, how you got started in the auto repair industry and what kind of led you to being a shop owner.
I mean, man, early on, I took everything apart. I never put anything back together the right way, but I used to take everything that was laying around the house. I used to want to see how it worked, so I'd always take it apart, and then I'd always have to hide it so my parents couldn't find it, because if you plugged it back in, it probably wouldn't work, or or they wouldn't be able to use it. So I always I enjoyed some mechanical stuff. So in 1998, I went to a technical high school that had an automotive program. I went through that. So I was a straight C student, sometimes a D student, but in auto mechanics, everything came naturally. So that's where I got my start. I mean, from there, we did our local VICA competition, and a friend and I placed second in Northeast Quarter in the VICA competition. We actually did fairly good through there. I got a job with Mercedes-Benz for a short while, did the dealer stint for a little bit, and then I actually found a really good very small 3-bay garage, and I really enjoyed working with them. So after I hopped from a couple dealers, I moved over to there, and I hung out there with this guy till 2014. So that's probably somewhere around 2003 to 2014 I was with him. And in 2012, I just, I loved him, but I was going to go do my own thing. And I had mentioned it to him, and he said, listen, I got to retire. The industry is just burning me out. So I want out. You buy this place off me, give me 2 more years so I could hit my 65, max out my retirement, and I'll be set. So that's we put it in motion, and I bought it off him in 2014.
Very cool. And then the rest is sort of this. So how is the shop still 3 bays, or has it grown since then?
So that shop went from 3 to 6 over the next couple years. In 2020, so in January of 20, in February of 20, we closed on a new building. We moved. And then March of 20, COVID hit. But the shop we're currently in is 13 bays, 13,000 square feet. And it's much bigger. The other place only had room for 20 cars max, and you had to move 5 to get something else in. So we had to really maximize bay efficiency, tech efficiency, and parking efficiency in the other shop. Here, there's a lot more room to move around. The parking lot's over an acre, so we got plenty of room to do what we got to do.
Very nice. Yeah, that's a much bigger spot. How'd you go about finding this different location?
Just lucked out. Real estate agent friend of ours found it and said, hey, your shop's small. You should take a look at this place. So, I mean, that night we made an appointment. The next day we were the first ones in here. We put an offer on and they accepted it. So
very nice. There you go.
It worked out really well.
Sometimes it works that simply. I know not all stories work that way, but I'm glad that it's obviously worked out amazingly well so far. And so obviously, like you've taken quite a bit of a journey in terms of like shop's pretty small, working for another owner, buying out said owner, growing a little bit, and I'm kind of like doubling and then doubling again in terms of just at least size structure, and I'm sure monetary, financial, P&L wise, definitely that increasing as well. But what we're going to dive into a lot about today is going to be kind of the leadership and culture. So obviously, as you've grown, you're not able to wear the hat across the board. There's more people and things that are involved, and so a lot of owners I know they struggle in terms of that. Like, how do I make that jump and like giving some things away? And I think a lot of that comes down to leadership. And so as a first question, like, what would you say is your leadership sort of style? Let's start with that.
I give out, so a lot of people like to just give out little menial tasks and little bits at a time. And I've actually gone the opposite way. I give everything out at once, and then I try to rein it back in. So if you're bouncing off the guardrails, we'll just tighten the guardrails a little bit, right? We might take some of that trust away if you go way too far out of line. But I'm not. So a lot of times, a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine in the industry are always like, you got to take your time hiring. You got to go real slow. I mean, typically, I'm the one who hires in 15 minutes. And if I mean, for lack of better words, if you do the things that you say you could do, and I'm very upfront. I set out my expectations really clear in an
Mhm.
interview. And if you tell me you could do all these things and you come in and you clearly can't do it, I'll just fire you. And I don't mean that to be in a bad way, but I make sure I really communicate that clearly and upfront because I don't want you to come work for us. And even if it's for $4 or $5 more an hour, and then put yourself or your family in financial jeopardy just
Mhm.
to come work with us. So with that being said, like I'll lay all that out, but I really don't follow the typical hiring and firing process, like it's a 10-15 minute conversation. We talk a little bit. If I feel like you fit our culture and you have the skills we're looking for, I pull you in. And if you don't work, we'll take you back out. And most of the time organically that person will find out they don't fit and they're gone anyway on their own. So
Mm.
we built a
Gotcha.
pretty
So have you always had that style, or has it kind of molded over time into being that way?
I've kept a lot of employees that were bad for themselves and for me at the same
Uh,
time. I know, and a lot of shop owners early on, they make the mistake of hiring a bunch of green technicians because they're cheaper, right? So you
yep.
hire a bunch of C level or GS technicians and you put them on a bunch of cars. Well, they're the ones who break the most stuff. They're the ones who have, they need the most help. So they're going to be the biggest time suck. And it wasn't fair to them and it wasn't fair to me, right? Because I
Mm.
couldn't give them what they needed and they weren't producing what I needed. So it was a lose-lose situation. So I held on to those people for too long because I felt guilty, and it wasn't until shortly after, after you run through that cycle a couple times, you realize like I got to figure something out here. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what I did wrong, but I got to figure it out. So
For sure. It's hard. It is hard having that balance though, in terms of like being able to like really fire someone and let them go when they're just not doing the job, especially like as you're building a business, you're like, oh, well, the leeway has to be given, but in some ways, in terms of like hitting the goals, like some leeway just can't be given anymore, especially if you're like, hey, this is the expedition I set forth, and you just don't have it despite the training that we're going to put
sure.
into you kind of deal. So,
Yeah.
um,
Big time. Because I mean, I had a lot of employees. Like I said, I kept way too long, and it wasn't until I found a coaching company in 2018 that really started to help me hone these skills in. So I pushed. I worked with them, for quite a long time. But I started realizing that the people that I'm hiring are just the ones that I'm enabling to do poor jobs. Right? I wasn't holding them accountable. I wasn't doing the things I was supposed to do as an owner, and it was really quick that from the top down, this had to be changed.
yeah,
So we did some restructuring. We hired on some new people. I let the poor performers go. We set everybody up with a, really good performance pay plan so that everybody had a good chance to make a bunch of money. And then the people who couldn't hack it, it wasn't fair for me to try and keep them, and it wasn't fair to them. You know what I mean? Because like I said, none of it worked. So we stair stepped them into this performance pay plan, and the ones who couldn't do it either, just slowly but surely decided to leave themselves because they knew the pay plan was going to hurt them. We put them on a guarantee at first. We went through all the I went through as much training as I could with them, but unfortunately, those people were just never going to be performers, or at least not for me. They weren't going to be a performer.
okay, gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious in terms of, did you obviously when you're starting, people are doing both things. So you're wrenching back there, you're also doing the writing. Like which one did you give up first? Like which direction did you go?
I gave up the service writing. Well, I was doing both at first. So,
Yep.
like in 2014, my wife, she came on board with us. She quit her job and came on, like, just took a leap of faith and jumped right in. Right. So, her and I were doing it by ourselves for a while. And then in 15, 16 through 17, I was turning wrenches, but I was hiring I had a bunch of, technicians on. Like, I
Mhm.
was basically overseeing everything, but I really
Yep.
wasn't getting a ton done. So, I wasn't able to get a bunch production out. It was just taking more time. Then I stopped, I'm going to say in 2018, late 2018, hired a service advisor, put her up front. She's now currently our manager here, but we put her up front and then I just went in the back and I kept wrenching because it was the fastest way to get cars out.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And so how does the hierarchy of organization look now? Like how is it built? How many techs? Is there like a leader of the techs, and then how many advisors? Is there a leader? Like how's
So,
everything situated?
yep, we have my wife still works with us. She does all of our accounting, back office, HR, accounts payable, receivable. She handles all that. Our manager runs the day-to-day operations. There's two service advisors under her, and then we have our shop foreman, and then I have seven technicians. So
Very
we
nice. That's
do quite
a
a bit.
healthy amount. So I'm betting that then as you've gone through this, obviously we're gonna dive into more leadership and culture and more, but in order for them to fit, I'm sure that you have certain questions and like qualifications during the interview process. And so how, like what are ways that you go, like it sounds like you hire pretty quickly. So like I'm sure that there's certain like things that like kick off right away that you're like, yep, they check that, they check that, they check that. And so like what are those things? What are you asking to be able to find that out so quickly?
So the main question I ask everybody is, why did you quit the last job you were at? Like
Mm,
before your current job now, why are you quitting this job? What are you looking for? Right? Because if everything revolves around, well, this person did this that was bad, I didn't like this, and everything is somebody else's fault, I mean, usually I'm pulling out the most common denominator here. You're involved in everything. So, I mean, but like the people who are just honest and humble is really what I'm looking for. So if
mm,
you're like, well, I was too green when I started here, so I really wasn't doing a good job. And then this job here is too far away from my house. The next job is, they changed management and I'm not really fond of the way they want me to do things. And I look for a lot of ethics, morality, I'm really looking for solid people versus the skill set. I mean, we need the skill set. I mean, obviously, this is a very technical career, but at the same time, I could teach the skill set. I can't teach you common ethics, morality, and just being a good person.
exactly. Trust, I think, goes such like obviously trust is earned, but
Yeah.
like for me, at least my style is where I give trust 100% when someone starts. It's like I that is your it's yours to lose and prove to me that I was wrong to give you that trust. And so that way, yes, mistakes can happen, but then like they can feel like there's not this overbearing. So obviously it's different from our business compared to yours, where I'm 100% remote, and so where this is the trust we build is through video, just like this. But
Yeah.
whereas in our repair shop, that trust is built a little bit differently. It's a lot more hands on. They see you, but really, I mean, as you've grown, like, do they do they see you that often? Like, are you having to go in pretty frequently still, or is there just like you trust the leaders to kind of still develop that culture? How does that look and work there?
Leaders do it absolutely 100%. I mean, it's not me. It's not me running the
Yep.
day to day. Now, you asked before about giving stuff away. I still stick my nose where it doesn't belong sometimes, and I end up picking up their processes, right? And I'm
Yep.
just really helpful, and it just comes from that helpful nature, right?
Uh,
So I do still have a little bit of that in me. I'm working through, like I'll see a tech struggling, and I'll give them some advice, but in all reality, my foreman was trying to teach them the proper way to do it, and I'm giving them a shortcut.
yeah.
So he has his reasoning behind it. So again, I've been scolded by my team as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, in all honesty, I don't have to be here on the day to day. I'm here this whole week. My shop foreman just had a baby last week on Valentine's Day, actually. So I'm filling in for him this week, and I'm really noticing like that what a good job he's done, what a good job my manager's done because I don't have there's not a lot of hand holding in the shop like what I'm used to. Because when I did that role full time, it was just constant checking on everybody, and now they're just coming to get me as they have intermittent problems where they need some advice. So.
Yeah. No, and that's amazing. And so in terms of like the leaders that you've sort of fostered, is it from have you built them from within, or do you typically find them outside to then place them into this said leadership role? How does that
I
typically
like
work for you?
I'd like to tell you, I mean, we're always trying to build our people up. And as we talk about growing more locations. And I always want the people that my core group, this group here, to be able to expand their horizons and go into other positions. But
Mhm.
at the same time, when we, in 2018, 2019, when we were just making our flop and figuring out how really to make a shop profitable, run good, and give really good customer service, then, and as I was learning just to be a leader and how to treat employees, all of that flopped at the same time. So I had to hire in people because we didn't have anybody that was, I mean, everybody was, I mean, we're probably talking 4 20-year-old technicians at that time who had no, like, they really didn't have the skill set. They really didn't have any experience. It was just, I took an able body at that time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think
Yeah.
everyone has their different things that they have to do, especially in times of need and making sure that the hopefully the right body kind of goes into the right place. So totally understand that. But and for your leaders now, like did you have to create sort of SOPs for them ahead of time? Did they create the SOPs in terms of the process that then the team
So,
follows, or is
yeah, I'll
there
just
even
be
SOPs? Like
completely
I don't
honest.
know. I'm curious.
Um, to be completely honest, my manager, I'm very visionary and she's very, like she puts the details to everything. She makes the spreadsheet, she does that. So we complement each other that way. I don't have to do that stuff. You know what I
Yep.
mean? My wife is the same way. I could dream it up and then she figures out how to put it into play. Those are the ones that are usually yanking the brakes, like slow down. You're going too fast for everybody. You're gonna, you're gonna make it. We don't want to create chaos, right?
Yes, no,
You
absolutely.
don't introduce chaos. So what I do is now I take the ideas that I have, I give them to them, I let them put them to paper and let them figure out how to execute. And then this way, because they're the ones that are going to have to hold everybody accountable to it anyway. I can't give them a system that they don't believe in, but if they build the system, then it's easy, right? Because they're going to believe in it wholeheartedly because they're the ones who built it. So
Yep.
that's how we do it that way. And it just lucked out. Like I'm a pretty good salesperson, but the follow through for me to be an advisor, order the parts, don't forget, make sure you update the customer because you told Mrs. Smith you'd call at 2 o'clock. All of that stuff I was terrible at. I didn't write notes down. I'll just remember it. And then later on, I'm like, what was I supposed to do again? That was terrible for me. So
It sounds like the same. I'm the same exact way. So like in terms of like, yes, I have the dreams and the vision, but there definitely needs to be the right people to execute said things and doing the follow up and doing that task orientation. That yes, I definitely I forget if it happens in 5 minutes and I didn't write it down and there's not a clear task that I had to do. It's like that's gone at this point. Like what we talk about again? So yeah,
absolutely.
I totally 100% understand that. Um, but then in terms of, it sounds like everyone is kind of bought into the culture and in terms of what you fostered. And so what would you say that culture is there at your shop?
Honestly, it's customer service. Like we have that really, I want to say humble servant, but like that servant leadership.
Mhm.
Everybody looking out for each other. They're not just looking out for, themselves, which I mean, when you like, because I've heard it all through, all the multiple groups on online and everywhere else you read, they say flat rate doesn't work in shops and, it doesn't get teams bought in together. But I mean, we run a flat rate shop here and I'm not telling anybody else how to do their or how to run their shop. I'm just saying it's what works for us and empowers our technicians to make the most money. And then on top of that, everybody here will still stop their flat rate job to go help somebody else for no other benefit other than helping that person, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, like that culture is kind of just bred over time. I don't expect immediately when you come in to buy in, but we start noticing things like here, nobody locks their toolbox. Like when I was at the dealership, everybody, every night, all your stuff went in your toolbox, you'd close it, you'd lock it. So for the first 2 weeks, we hire a technician here, everything's closed up, locked. And then after about 2 weeks, you start seeing the toolbox left open. After about 3 weeks, you'll see, like everything's left out, nothing's, like, and you could just tell like they start getting more and more comfortable and they start trusting, like, because like at first, I think when they come in, it's almost unbelievable because like every Monday here, we like to sit down, we come in early, we sit down, we have breakfast together and we goof around and have fun and just chat. We'll go over some of our, weekly numbers. We'll have our team meeting for that normal rally. And then after that, we're off and running. And I think the first time people come into that, it's a little odd because they're not used to it. So
Yeah, no, I like that a lot in terms of a more relaxed style of managing that just is fostered through trust at the end of the day. And I think that goes a long way for people. I mean, they recognize that, they appreciate that. Um, so what what has been your experience, say, in the past? Is it much different than you experienced in the past? Did you learn that like that's what you wanted to foster? Is that always the way that as you've worked, you're like, yep, this is what it has been, and I've seen it work really well, and I kept that. So like, what was there ever a pivot, or did you just keep going with what was working in a sense?
To be honest with you, everywhere I worked, I knew I hated that. I just didn't know what I wanted, right? That was
Oh,
the
okay.
point of like I always swore I'd never work for anybody else because of that, right? I
Hmm.
hated going to work some days because I was miserable every day.
Hmm.
So like, especially like during my hiring process, I tell people if I know every day won't be your best day, but if every day is your worst day, you won't be here long. So if you're the miserable type, I'd rather you stay where you're at because I don't want you switching jobs, moving stuff around, coming here trying to be something you're not, because eventually your true colors will show through and that'll put you in a position where we will remove you because I mean I protect the culture at all costs.
Yes.
Well,
No.
it's not just about myself, it's not about the bottom line, it's about everybody here. Like it truly is a good team mentality and they're like my family. So I mean I'm not going to let somebody come in or something or someone come in and kill that culture.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. Momentary pause there. I had children and I jumping through, interfering. But
Life lasts for no
we're
more,
back
right?
in line. I wanted to chat more about. I know you mentioned your style of flat rate and running things there that way. Obviously, I know it's a hot topic for some people. Some people want to manage things one way. Some people work for a different way. For you, why are you a firm believer in flat rate, performance based?
Everywhere I worked, so I mean through the dealership roles, right? It was always flat rate. And that's what I got used to first in the industry. But I found out that no matter what, as long as I paid attention to what I was doing and I started upgrading my tooling, I was able to get faster and faster. So I was able to take 8 physical hours, turn them into 10 billable hours and make a good buck, right?
Mm.
Or if I was going to do that flat rate or if I was going to do that hourly, I'd slow down and I'd have to do that. Now, I do know that some people or value their time, and they want to be in and out and so long. So they will like I guess I hear some of the arguments of my people value their time and I don't want them rushing through jobs. I don't want my people rushing through jobs either. It's quality over quantity always, right? We need to give a good customer service product. So a lot of our rule here is flat rate is supposed to be a reward for fast, good technicians, right? It is not meant to be a punishment. So I think way too many owners, and again, I think this flipped flopped so many times between, the late 80s all the way through the 90s and back and forth,
Hmm.
even coming up, that flat rate was a punishment. Like if the shop's doing bad, you do bad. So I don't abide by that. Like my job is to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to get cars in the door, to make sure my salespeople are selling jobs. If they're doing their part, you'll have your hours. If there's no hours here, I've got you covered. So I don't actually have a written guarantee for any of my technicians, but I do a handshake agreement with every single one of them that if there's no cars here, I've got you covered. I don't want you to have to worry about making your mortgage payment or, making your car payment. I want you to actually be happy where you are. Like, I mean, but I also at the same time, when it's, 4:15 and Mrs. Smith needs her car back today, and I say she really needs this, it's a 3-hour job, and you do it as fast as you can and you get it done in an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours, then why should you be punished for that? Like you
Hmm.
went faster for better customer service. Why should you be penalized for that? So the way we do it is it's basically a reward system, right? And it
Yep.
rewards them for their skill, their ability, and all the time they've put in. Because I don't believe that working hourly you can get that. Now, again, there are different models, different shops, and I'm not telling anybody how to run theirs. This is just what works here.
Yep.
So I tell everybody too, we also don't put like a green technician. So we hire a C-level technician on. He goes hourly and we track their hours from day one until they bill over 40 hours consecutively, or they're billing right at 40. Then we'll make that move and put them on flat rate, but we coach them through the process. It's step by step. It's not like you're on flat rate, sink or swim. See you later. It's
Hmm.
always a process of where we put you, where we're going to teach you the whole process of it so you're right on with everything. Or, we're going to work with you through this. It's never like you're not going to be laying out in the deep end drowning.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I like that. It gives them a learning basis, almost like a training period, and then it turns into more of a positive benefit. 'Cause I'm a firm believer in like it obviously there's different roles for different types of people, but when there's incentivization to do better, yeah, it's not you cannot then just blame like the technician for doing a poor job because okay, this is the way they're being paid. And like but like you as a leader, that's on you. Like in terms of training them to build the right foster the right culture where it's like it's the right incentivization to have them perform better. And even if you're on the flip side, if they're at a base pay and this is what it is, this is on you on a leader to make sure that this is what benefits them the most and the culture that you're fostering. So I think it all points back to the leader themselves, but I think unfortunately most owners or leaders don't want to see it that way. I think it's a lot in this, even for both sides of both like even the technicians, it's a lot of just transferring of blame of like, oh, whose fault is this? Whose fault is that? Whereas like instead looking internally like, okay, what could I have possibly done better to train them and what I properly wanted? Like, or
Sure.
and the flip side, like what could I have maybe asked better to properly understand what the owner wanted? And if just that conversation took place, I feel like so many shops would be so much further along in terms of just like fostering the right people and having them there rather than just like, oh, no, this person's not the right fit. Get him out. Or no, this is not the right shop for me. I'm out of here. And like so like I think that's like the common denominator, at least to me, in my opinion, as a third party that has spoken and like, with a lot of different shop owners, a lot of different styles, I see it as like if the leader was the one that was like fostering the right thing, then it almost doesn't even become a question anymore. It's like, okay, if the team is naturally seeing that they're valued and there's nothing else like other than like I need to focus on the customer and taking care of them. And then everyone then obviously has that snowball effect. So
Absolutely, man. There's a shop owner. He's maybe 4 or 5 miles away from me, and all his guys are hourly, and he has great production out of there too.
mm,
And it's just because he's a good leader, right? And
mm,
he pushes his team, and he's standing there with them every day, and he appreciates them, shows them that he cares about them. And those are the ones who, like I said, those are the ones who really get under great leadership. They'll do well. The problem is when he's not there, he sees a performance dip. Right. So there's nothing else to hold them accountable to it. But like, after you get a technician that'll bill, 55, 60 hours in a regular work week, good quality, solid work, no comebacks, and they're turning hours, they start to hold themselves accountable to their payroll, right?
mm.
So it lets them push for a better paycheck. It doesn't limit them on what they can do because we have every technician here has a key to the door. They can come in at any time they want, and as long as they're not doing anything dangerous where they're here by themselves, they're
Yep.
more than welcome to work on their own vehicles, or if they want to stay late and finish a job, they're absolutely more than welcome to do that. it's your time, right? So a lot of my technicians will stay till 5:30, quarter to 6, finish up a job. And, we only run our technicians from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They'll
Mhm.
stay to finish up a job so the next day is a fresh start for them. And all those hours go on, that's their time, but they're also banking on it if that's what they want.
Yes.
That's awesome too. So again, it comes through a lot of clear communication from between the front of house and back of house. It comes from, a really good leadership structure. And then it comes from, everybody feeling empowered, valued, and making sure that they know their purpose, they know why they do what they do, and they know that they're not just here just fixing cars, right? They know
Yeah,
that there's a big
exactly. Yeah, that's it's all being valued and the communication is happening. So in terms of the communication, how often are you? It sounds like yes, you do that Monday morning meeting, but are there how many meetings are you really having as like is that I'm guessing that's one of the team. I'm guessing you're meeting sometimes with the leaders themselves by themselves. Do you like do step downs as people call them? Are you meeting with like the technicians or the writers and like what does that look like in terms of like that structure for you?
So I do a one-on-one with every single person here every 90 days. Now,
Mm.
up until recently, my manager has been doing the one-on-one. So I've still been sitting in like I want to say biannually, like twice a year on
Mhm.
these one-on-one meetings. But just coaching how that goes and stuff like that. But we do one-on-one meetings with everybody 90 days. During those meetings, there's a couple things we do. We print out a list of what you want to accomplish. Like, so we ask you about what are your goals, aspirations, because if I could help you achieve your goals quicker, I mean, then obviously, so I think a lot of people have it wrong in the way they structure things. So, the way like our team meetings and stuff and the way we do our one-on-one meetings, I think are what really makes the company.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of people, like, I used to think that the customer was my number one concern, but now it's my employees are my number one concern, right? Because the employees will take care of the customer will take care of the business, and then the business would take care of me. So it's super easy to get that circle mixed up, though. You always think your employees are number one, or excuse me, your customers are number one, employees are number two, but it's backwards. Most, if you're in a leadership role, they're number one, and the customer comes second, right? But
Mhm.
they'll take care of the customer, and they'll make the customer number one. So it has to be that right priority. But in our one-on-ones, I'm trying to figure out what do you want out of life? Where are you trying to go? And if you don't know, can we give you some trajectory or some aim, right? Like, can we point you in a direction that you would feel works good for you? Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to shift or guide you in any which way. I just want to be able to say, like, walking through life aimlessly is no fun for anybody, right? Especially when you're lost. So if they at least have some structure where they could think about what they want and start to goal bracket some of that stuff out, figure out how they're going to do it. So we do those 90-day one-on-ones. We check in. There's a couple things we'll ask for you professionally, right? Like, I would like you to work on your diagnostic skills. I would like you to attend this training. I'd like you to do this. So in 90 days, we check in with them. Where are you at with this? How have you done? And it's not like we're not here to crucify you if you didn't make it, right? It's
Yep.
like, I want to see progress. I don't need perfection. And
Yep.
if we continue to see progress over and over again, then we're on the right track. But if we start seeing you slip backwards, we start to intervene and say, hey, what can we do to help? And how can we be of service here? As
Yeah.
leaders. As far for meetings, we have a meeting. We have a board system that we run that does all of our work. We have the entire workload up there for the day. We meet there every day, and everybody goes over every job that's on that board. So typically, my manager's standing there, and we run down everything that's there. If somebody has to go home sick, we know what jobs have to go at a certain time. Other people could say, mine doesn't have to go till tomorrow. I could hop in on that. And it kind of cues everybody in. If it's really busy, right after lunchtime, when everybody's back, we have another one of those huddles at the board, go through our meeting real fast and make sure where you at with this one. Do we have to update any customers now? Like, we use a 10, 2, and 4 callback method. I really don't want to call a customer at 5:15 and tell them their car's not going to be done today.
Yeah.
That usually makes them mad. Doesn't make a good thing. So we try to update the customer as soon as possible. Like, if we got the wrong parts, let's call them at 10 o'clock and give them the whole day to plan out their night without their vehicle, right? Let's make
Mhm.
sure they know. At 2 o'clock is kind of like our, okay, where are you at? Do you think this will be done today? How, like, we're checking in with our technicians. And one of my manager, one of my advisors will run through and just, they're basically just running down the list of this car has to go today. You think it'll be done? Yes. Okay, great. This car has to go today. You think it'll be done? We're updating customers again. Let them know. And then if it's on the fence, we'll call and just ask for the additional time now. I'd rather, under promise and then over deliver than the other way around, because it always ends up with a customer that's upset, frustrated, or mad. And then
Yep. No, definitely. I love.
leads to a bad Google review and then makes it harder to gain attention.
Yeah.